Jesus was a rock star.
And pray with me and say, Jesus, help me to be what you want me to be. Do what you want me to do. Because people without you go to hell.
I can feel it. 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 I can feel it.
It was encouraging when we were on Friday night. Some of you were talking about the series that we're doing now. At least one of you were. And this is, if you don't need this now, you'll need it later. But today is actually a little tougher and not that easy to preach because we've been talking about forgiving. First was little offenses. Last week was betrayals. And today we're talking about forgiving God. And next week, in 2 weeks, after I get back, we're going to be doing forgiving ourselves. But that is the series that we're doing. But forgiving God, a lot of people, they get angry with God. I've talked to people. Actually, this is kind of funny. Have you ever talked to an atheist that is angry at God? I have. It's hilarious. It's like, well, you don't believe in him. Why are you so mad? Because they'll tell you, I don't believe in God, and then they'll tell you why. Then it's because he didn't do stuff for them that he thought they should, And I always find that to be an entertaining conversations. But why would we ever have to forgive God? Maybe you're here today and you have wanted a baby for a long time. And it seems like all of your friends are having babies, but it just hasn't happened for you. It hasn't happened yet. Or maybe you've been with a guy for a while and he hasn't popped the question yet. Or maybe you're a guy and you're saying, Lord, why can't I have a wife? I wish I could find somebody. And the years go by, you pray and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe one of you are here today and like a lot of us have lost somebody so special to you. And you said, God, why did you let this happen? Why didn't you answer my prayer that this person would be healed? Maybe for yourself, you've been praying that God would heal you, and it still hurts. And people have even come and said, hey, we want to pray for you again. And there's a part of you that is like, I just don't even want that again because I can't dare to hope anymore. God, how come? And then you'll go someplace and then you see other people being healed or set free. Maybe somebody passed away that was important to you and it was tough. We have all, and if you haven't been yet, been disappointed by God. That is a real thing. And I just want to tell you that if you have an area of your life that you're saying something like, God, if you love me so much, why did you let this happen? And if you haven't asked that question of him yet, I doubt you have served him very long. And if you have asked him that question, you're in pretty good company. You're in the company of Elijah, of course, who said, oh, God, please kill me. You're in the company of Job, who longed to die. You're even in company with Jesus that cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? If you love me so much, how come you let me hurt so very much? And so there's going to come a time when we can begin to develop a grudge against God. And sometimes what happens is somebody will have this disappointment and it'll grow, it'll become a grudge. Then they'll kind of get over it, but their heart is iced over and apart. And they don't have that same intimacy and that freedom. They've lost some of their faith. There's just a hard spot on them, and I've met them. And it's when God doesn't do what he felt like, ultimately, we feel like God owes us, is what it comes down to. Now, we know God doesn't owe us. You know God doesn't owe you. He doesn't owe me. But still, these disappointments, they happen, and we have a grudge against God. So what do you do when you realize you're holding a grudge against God? How can you begin to forgive God? Now, technically, God can't sin, right? So technically, God doesn't need our forgiveness because he's God. So whatever happened and however he has conducted himself, we may not understand it, but we know that he is just and he is loving. He's both of those at the same time. He's absolutely infatuated with you, but I know from my own life that sometimes God walks with me through incredibly painful things that I do not understand. And it hasn't happened once or twice in my life. It's happened a lot of times in my life where it's like, God, I do not understand what you're doing. I don't know why. Sometimes if I'm feeling low, God, why are you doing this to me? God, it's not fair. And then we inevitably, go to how good other people have it. But God technically never sins because God, if he sinned, he wouldn't be God anymore. So he can't do something contrary to his nature. He knows, well, if God can't sin, then he can't do anything. That's a stupid thing to say. But he can't do something that isn't him because he's too perfect. He's absolutely, completely holy. And so, how do we do it? We stop blaming God. We let it go and we reconcile to God. How do we do that? Elkanah is who we're gonna look at him today. But actually, Elkanah is not the famous guy. Anybody before I go any further know a story I'm going to share when I just show you his name? Oh, Scott, he's a Bible scholar over there. Well, we know his wife better, don't we? Because sometimes we marry well, and sometimes it's like I am her husband. That happens sometimes, and it's happened for me. It happened. I'm not going to tell you the story, but anyway. I really want you. Okay, we were at this thing, and I'm supposed to be the big dude because I'm the pastor. So and so she's everybody's like introducing themselves around this table as at a picnic. Yes, and I'm his wife is how all the women are. And then we get to me, and Lisa just says I'm his wife, and then the person who's putting on the picnic says, "No, tell us what they really do." And Lisa says it, and I think y'all know, but she says it, and then it goes, "Oh," you can hear the gasp. It was hilarious. There was an audible, "Oh." So yeah, I'm married to her. Anyways, but Elkanah, he was married to Hannah, and of course Hannah would be the mother of Samuel, but she couldn't conceive. It was, and she got married young, just like she was supposed to. And the years ticked by, and she didn't conceive, and she kept on praying. She would go to this certain place of worship regularly, and she would pray at this place year after year. But they needed an heir, and what was very common at that time, Elkanah took on another wife. Now, some guys think it would be really awesome to have like multiple wives. Those people have never been married, by the way. There's no good endings in the Bible with multiple women involved in a marriage. You try to find it for me. It never goes well. But anyways, he takes on a second wife. And of course, Hannah still couldn't have children. And so she is an abject failure in her eyes. Because at that time, that was that was her purpose in that culture. And of course, her husband had means and wealth, and there was no heir. So she felt like she was embarrassed. She was full of shame. She felt useless. And each year, they took their family to Shiloh, and she would pray. They would worship and they would sacrifice at that time. And so we pick it up in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 6. So Peninnah would taunt. Peninnah, by the way, was the pipsqueak that was his second wife. Okay, and she wasn't very nice. Okay, so Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. So because Elkanah kind of liked Hannah better, and so Peninnah would poke at her all the time because it threatened her. And so year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle, and each time Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. So year after year after year, she would be broken to tears by this bully in their home. Now, she was a sweet and godly and nice girl, and you would think, why didn't God give her a child? That's all she's ever asked for her entire life, was to be able to bear a son for her husband. And she prayed and she prayed and she prayed, and God didn't answer again and again and again. And maybe you're here today and you had 1 year has been a prayer, and then the next year has been a prayer, and you've been praying for something over and over and over again, and it's just like God is ignoring you. So you pray, but he didn't answer. And maybe you're a faithful, good person like Hannah, who prayed and waited and believed God and hoped God could do something, and yet he's just doing nothing. So why would God not do this? Well, maybe the truth is for you that you've been angry at God for a long time, and maybe you kind of got over it and you're able to come to church again. But I wonder if there hasn't been an iciness that has come over your heart, that you don't weep like you used to when the presence of God comes, that you're not moved in compassion for people like you once were, because maybe God disappointed you and you got a little irritated with him. And so you just hardened up a little bit, because that's a way of coping. It's not a healthy way of coping, but you cope and you just keep on moving. So Peninnah, well, of course, she was a wicked witch. She was wicked. She was vicious. She was as mean as a cat in a shower. Now this next one is actual footage of Peninnah. Yes, mean as she was a mean old lady. So God, why would God bless her and not Hannah? And if you've ever been there, it's no joke when you are struggling financially. You have been faithful to God in every way that you know how. You've been doing everything right. You go to church, you give, and then this person over here just trips into money all of the time. And you're like, God, what in the world? Why do you bless them so much and cut me so short? God, why is it always so hard for me and so easy for them? Because I think all of us do the same thing. That when we get disappointed in the prayer or whatever that we've been asking God for, we get disappointed in that. And then it seems like everybody's prayers are being answered. And we can point at 20 people that God has not been faithful to, is what we feel. Now, maybe we know that that's not true, but we feel like, God, aren't you aware of what's happening here? 1:8, it says, why are you crying, Hannah? Elkanah would ask. There are some things that you shouldn't say as a husband. And he didn't get the memo. Why aren't you eating? Don't be downhearted just because you have no children. Well, you have me. Aren't I better than 10 sons? To which Hannah said, can you rephrase the question? I'm not sure that's what you meant to say. Maybe you don't want me to answer that, exactly, Elkanah. But he does, a husband talk, and that's always tough. And so, but she's trying to love God, and the one thing that she wants, God withholds. The rival is there, not just from a distance, but she's poking at it. She's making those snarky, snide comments. And her husband can do nothing but put his foot in his mouth. He doesn't get her pain. She feels so alone. I know how my wife would answer. But how many of you ladies feel like your husband just don't get it? How many of you guys feel like she doesn't get it? See, everybody, we're all there, just in different ways, except for Ingerlisa. I get her. She doesn't even realize it, but I do. And so we carry the grudge against God. We know it's stupid. We know it's wrong. We know that God is just and holy. And so Hannah comes to God, and she just lets it rip. Check this out. Once after a sacrificial meal in Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli, the priest, was sitting at his customary place. He had seen this woman before, beside the entrance of the tabernacle. And Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly. She prayed to the Lord. So she just begins to pour out her heart to God. And she doesn't care who's watching. She is weeping. She is snotting. She is carrying on. And I think Eli thought she was drunk and even chewed her out a little bit. She's going at it. And then And God sees her in that moment. And God understands your pain. When the pain is really bad, a few weeks ago, I told you, a couple of weeks ago, I told you about a gal that I was ministering to at one point in a kid jail, jail for minors. And she said, Pastor, every night I would pray to God that my dad wouldn't molest me. And every night he did. Where was God when I was being molested? That's a heavy question. And some of you have that kind of hurt. Maybe not that exact one, but you have got some stuff that really hurt. And it was awful. And there's a part of you that maybe even as you've grown in the Lord, there's been part of you that says, okay, God, I love you, but why? And you carry an offense towards God. I tell you, I don't have all the answers of why things happen. I know one thing. It wasn't that girl's sin that hurt her that night. It was her dad's sin. That's one of the worst things about sin. It doesn't just hurt you. It hurts everybody around you, and it hurts the people that you love the most. That's just what sin does. But what I told her that night was, I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that your God wept with you. And he's with you, and he loves you. And that's what I want to say to you today. Maybe you've been praying for something for years, and you have, and maybe it's time that you just have it out with God. God can handle your anger. He knows it's there anyway. It's actually healthier for you to cuss God out than to let that coldness form on the top of your heart. It's healthier for you to scream at God and to have it out with him. I've done that. I've cussed praying to God. And, and you just let it rip. And you just because he knows it's in your heart anyway. Get it out so he can deal with it. And he is faithful and good. So God welcomes your anger. He welcomes your questions. He would rather you walk to him and yell at him than to get cold and walk away. God would prefer that. So Hannah tells God, give me a son and I'll give him back. Verse 9, the entire family got up the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then they returned home with Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea. And of course, she would have Samuel. And Samuel would do all the cool things that Samuel did. A waiting season is not a wasted season. Because God comes and he answers prayer. God's delays are not necessarily his denials. I'll tell you this, sometimes they are. And we have to be okay with that. Sometimes God says no, and he doesn't do something we asked him to do, and we will never understand why he did that. Now, I know why he didn't answer some of my prayers, okay? Some of my prayers. You heard that old Garth Brooks song, Thank God. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. I've dated some girls that thank God for unanswered prayers. They didn't turn out, Ingralisa has stayed normal and good longer than any of the women I've ever dated. But sometimes sometimes I can see, we had a financial trial. Probably, I've had a pretty charmed life, but we had a period of time where we spiraled hopelessly into debt for about 2 years. And it was very difficult. And at the time, I didn't understand. Looking backwards now, I do. I can't tell the rest of that story now, but I totally get it. It's easier to see what God was doing looking backwards. But I have some stuff that I look backwards and I still don't understand. I still don't understand why I had to walk through what I walked through. And so, we're mad at God, hurt, disappointed, holding a grudge. We can continue to trust. We can come to him exactly as we are, and he's not going to hold it against you. You don't have to sugarcoat it with God, but he wants you to run to him with your pain. Now, I've had times when I have yelled at God, and then I've had the fear of God come on me, and that was an appropriate response, right? And so I don't know, but I am telling you that he wants you running to him, not getting hard. He will never leave you. He is still there, even in the midst of your pain, even in the midst. And so if you have hardened your heart because he didn't do something you wanted him to do, I encourage you, you can come back to him. And you can, and maybe you need a hard conversation with him. You can let go of the hurt. You can choose to still trust. You can choose to not holding a grudge. Now, we're going to do something kind of unique right now, and I've got enough time to do it. I purposely did this. And there was a song as I was preparing for this message that I came across. And there's different kind, and plus I'm going to teach you a new way to worship with music if you want. And that is, because you can do this all by yourself. I'm going to play you a song that I'm pretty sure you've never heard before. Pretty obscure song. But I want you to, as it plays, the lyrics will be on the screen, but what would be even better than the lyrics, if you could have enough concentration to focus your entire heart and mind on every word. Don't try to sing along. Just wrap your mind around every word. If it's easier for you to read the words on the screen, but let the words and the lyrics of the song all the way in. Don't think about anything else. Let the music wash over you and wrap your heart and mind around every lyric. And then we're going to come back together again.
When I feel lost, you
Close your eyes with me now. Lord, we love you so much. Thank you, Lord. I don't know where you're at today. Maybe everything just feels good right now for you. But I'll tell you this, there's going to come a day when you're going to be disappointed with God. And I really feel like there were some of you who maybe you sense a hardness over your heart. Maybe you didn't even know it was there. But there was a time in your life when you had more passion for Jesus than you do now. And it's because he disappointed you. And it didn't work like the preacher told you it was going to work. I'm going to pray in a minute. And I'm going to pray a prayer of abandonment. In other words, God, you don't owe me anything. I'm going to serve you the rest of my life. And I implore you to pray with me and say, me too, God. You don't owe me anything. For though you slay me, I will trust you. That's what Job said. God, that's the kind of relationship I want to have with you. There's no conditions on my surrender to you, Jesus. I'm going to pray that kind of prayer. I'm also going to pray for you because you need to have a talk with God. You have to have a heart-to-heart with him, and you need to let it out. Maybe you need to get in your car and drive off in the country someplace or get someplace where nobody can hear you or judge you. But God is not scared of your pain. He's aware of it. So bring it to him. Lay it at his feet because he is good and faithful to give you exactly what you need in that moment. That's the God that we have. He hurts with you. So Lord, I come to you today, God. And Lord, I just want to recommit my life and anybody else who wants to do it right now, God, that Lord, you don't owe me anything. Lord, if I never received a blessing again, Lord, you are so incredible. I would serve you the rest of my life. Lord, I would serve you the rest of my life. Though you slay me, I will trust you, God. Lord, I pray for grace. I pray you give me the grace that I need to endure the pain that you ask us all to walk through, God. But Lord, at the end of the day, I am yours and you are mine. Lord, we're together. You bought me and I'm not taking myself back. Jesus, you redeemed me by the cross. And I'm not throwing that back in your face today. I'm going to walk for you, Lord. Lord, I also say a prayer for every person in this place that if there is something that happened in their lives that they need you to heal their hearts, I pray you would break that hard heart. And it does feel like breaking. It feels like the breaking of a heart because not only do we have, when we come bring those things to you, not only are we irritated with you, but we have tried to shroud that pain behind a wall. And we built that wall so deep and so thick. And we know, God, that sometimes you come in with a wrecking ball because you have a plan for us and you don't want us carrying that stuff anymore. And so, God, sometimes it's painful to have you heal us. It's painful to have you break our hearts. But, God, we want you to break our hearts today. We want you, oh God, to come and to change us from the inside out. If for no other reason, is because of the people in our lives who don't know you, and we love them and we want them in heaven forever with us, God. That's a pretty good reason to say yes to you, to breaking my heart. The other thing is, God is, and this is the more important one by far. Lord, I know that when that hardness is there and when that superficialness that we do, God, we don't get to experience you like we need to. That intimate, refreshing relationship with you. We don't get that when our hearts are iced over. And that's where the good stuff is when you just come on us, Lord. So, Lord, I pray that you would pour your Spirit out on our church in Jesus' name. And, Lord, that we wouldn't let pain keep us from you, but instead we would run to you with every drop of pain. And we lay it at your feet. And as the years tick by, we just smile because we know you're good and you show yourself good over and over and over again. It never ends. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
Jesus was a rock star.